So the end of the 2017 season and of course financial year is upon us. The club will be holding its annual general meeting in a week's time, which means we now have the audited figures from the financials, and I can tell you that for the first time in over 3 years the club has produced an operating surplus and eliminated $90,000 worth of debt. We as a board have conducted a full review of the season to learn from what we got right, and I think we got a lot right, but also what we didn't get right and what we can improve on. Out of that that review, some 100 recommendations have been considered and accepted by the board to improve things for next year. One of the key things the board really wants to focus on next year is making sure we get as many locals, give them the opportunity for as many minutes on court as possible. To that end, and with a little bit more financial flexibility for the club now, we're going to invest thousands of dollars in pre-season training for our locals, in physio for our locals as well. And this is the first time really in many years that the club's been in a financial position to be able to do this. What our expectation is that rather than hiring an extra import, we're going to spend about that amount of money on investing in our local players to give them the very best shot of being fit enough and at the level we want them to get as many minutes on court as possible, but also with our new high performance coach, of course, working closely with Dwayne and Stewie. We will be building pathways for our local players. We want to see our local players get into the NBL, heading to American colleges, sticking with the Chargers, but being the very best basketballers they can be, and we're putting our money where our mouth is to invest in that.
So only one import this year, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying one import. I'm saying because we've got a bit more financial flexibility, we're going to invest about what we might have invested in a third or a fourth import, if you like, in our local players and giving them the best opportunity to play.
So that'd be match payments along the lines,
well, look,
more the off-court stuff?
Match payments are a little bit complex because in fact a number of our younger players want to go and play an American college system and they can't be paid. So, and obviously we're not, we're a semi-professional club, that is we play our imports and a lot of that payment goes towards them doing 15 hours of community work. We're working in schools. So a lot of our local players aren't doing that work and therefore they're not being paid for that work. This is really about constructing support packages, if you like, for our local players to give them the absolute best chance to get the most minutes for the Chargers, make the most contribution for the Chargers, but then go on with their basketball careers as well. I see people like Shana Thompson. She's a future WNBL player and we want to give her absolutely the very best opportunities to do that. So we're going to invest in players like her to give her the best fitness training, the best high performance coaching and the most number of minutes on court that we can.
How much money are you talking then?
Well, we're talking between $10,000 and $20,000 is what it kind of costs us for an import player, if you like, fully on costed, and we're looking at investing that. Together with that though, without cash payments to our local players, we're putting together sponsor packages for our local players, so many of their costs like petrol and other things will be looked after by the club as well.
Do you expect it to increase the standard of, the players that you get to things like these tryouts, and is that the aim here to...
Look, everybody wants to come along to the basketball and see the really high-end, flashy players that we can import, and we're not going to stop doing that. And you've seen in Trey Nichols for our men's team, someone who is going to absolutely light up the Derwent Entertainment Centre in 2018. But I think also we have a club, as a community club, we have a responsibility to create real pathways for this extraordinary explosion in basketball participation we're seeing. VTAS recently reported that 36% increase in basketball registrations in Tasmania in 1 year alone, and I'm certain that it's the 11,000 kids that we ran through our school clinics has something to do with that as well. We want to create pathways through from those school clinics all the way to playing for the Chargers and beyond, and that means we need to invest in our local players, in their program, in the support of their program, hence investing in our high performance coach, and hence investing in really pre-season and starting pre-season serious training long before perhaps we have been able to afford to do so in the past.
So, is part of this about, I guess, creating a culture around the club of being seen as more local? Is that a part of it?
Absolutely. These are players, BJ Radcliffe and Shana Thompson. These are the players who are who live in this community and represented in this community all year round. We want to make real stars of them in this community, and we know the community will embrace and love them as much as they do the sort of high-flying import players that we bring in. Look, we have eliminated basically 90% of all of the debt, and including some discovery of some unpaid superannuation liabilities and a few other bits and pieces that we discovered during the year. We are absolutely focused on good governance and good financial management. We've proved that this year. But what good governance and good financial management bring you is the opportunity to invest in basketball, and that's what we're doing.
Will you forge ahead as you were with the NBL bid, despite what you've heard during the week about the AFL being involved?
Well, look, I've been talking with government and I've been talking with the NBL about the Chargers NBL Ready plan. There's a whole lot of factors in NBL that are outside of our control. And one thing I learned from politics is the things that are outside of your control, don't worry about them. Focus on the things that are in your control, and that's what we're doing. And we are 1 year into a 3-year plan. We are ahead of that 1-year plan, no doubt about it. And 2017 season proved that. Pardon me. I've been also talking with government, and they've been listening with open ears about what I think it'll take to put a really quality NBL bid together. That's under consideration by government, but we can't worry too much about the factors that are outside our control. We have to press ahead. What I know is this, is in 3 years' time, we will either be absolutely ready for the NBL and have a structure in place, an ownership structure in place to make that happen, or we will set up the Hobart Chargers as the strongest Seaball club in Australia for the next decade.
Are you supportive of the 3-on-3 model that's come out? Do you think that'll be a benefit to what you guys are trying to achieve as well?
Absolutely. I see 3-on-3 as a real growth sport. It's what the kids are playing. It's what certainly what my 14-year-old son's into, every weekend, all weekend. And I think it's a great entry point to the sport as well. And there's potential to invest quite cheaply in infrastructure around the state, outdoor 3x3 courts and so on, to make that happen, and that's a really good thing, I think. I'm really supportive of what Mark's doing outside of the Chargers. Mark Nash is doing outside of the Chargers in that area, and I'm certain there will be some real spin-off benefits for the Chargers as well with that. We're already talking about how can we make this work for both the Chargers and the 3x3 league, and I think there's some great opportunities we'll be announcing in the future.
When you spoke to the NBL last, what was their plans for expansion? How many clubs?
I have never had from the NBL a really crystal clear, this is what we want to do. I've heard from the NBL that they're interested in Hobart and Darwin. I've heard from the NBL they are interested in expansion by 2 to 4 teams, including Wellington in Auckland, in New Zealand. But I've never heard, and I've heard, of course, as we all have, that some AFL clubs are starting to put their hands up for what looks like that sort of Barcelona football club model of owning multiple teams under one brand, and that makes sense. I think that makes sense for the NBL, and it probably makes sense for AFL clubs as well. Look, my job, or my passion, it's not my job, my passion is for basketball in Tasmania, helping build pathways for young kids and playing the most professional, most elite level of basketball we possibly can in Tasmania. That's what I'm focused on doing.
There's no reason though, if there was a couple of AFL clubs going in, that we couldn't go in as well.
Well, I don't see that as a stopper. Again, there are things outside of our control and there are things that we can control. I'm focused on the things we can control.